Hi guys, welcome in everybody. Drop your names in the comments. We are doing the neon names. Let's go guys. Everybody welcome to my live. Get your names done. Everybody welcome in. Get your neon names done guys. Welcome to my live. We are doing glowing neon names for my subscribers. So you need to drop a name in the comments. Hit that subscribe button, like the live, and let's get started. Welcome in, guys. Everybody, drop your names, guys, in the comments. Welcome to my live. All right, let's go, guys. Then first we have is John in the chat. How are you, John? Here you go, John. Have a nice day. Who do we have next, guys? Welcome in, everybody. Drop your names in the comments. Welcome to my live. Who's next, guys? Everybody, welcome in. Drop your names, guys. We are doing neon glowing names for my subscribers. Hi, how are you? Andra's in the chat. All right, Andras, here you go. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Anishma. How are you, Anishma? Thank you so much for subscribing and liking. Everybody hit that like button, guys. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is San Mary. Here you go, San Mary. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat that we have is Zayan. How are you doing? Here you go. Have a nice day. Next subscriber is Mio in the chat. Here you go, Mio. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Camden. Here you go, Camden. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Ashley. How are you, Ashley? Have a nice day. Next subscriber is Brace in the chat. Here you go, Brace. Have a nice day. Next subscriber is Sophia. Here you go, Sophia. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Briggs. Here you go, Briggs. Have a nice day. Next subscriber that we have is Savannah. How are you, Savannah? Have a nice day. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Kellyanna. Thank you, Kellyanna, for liking. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Brandon. How are you, Brandon? Thank you so much for liking, everybody. Next subscriber is Charlie. Here you go, Charlie. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Cameron. How are you, Cameron? Thank you so much for subscribing. Next subscriber in the chat is Mason. Thank you for liking, Mason. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Saradu. Thank you so much for liking my live. Next subscriber in the chat is Libango. Hey, go Libango. Have a nice day. Next subscriber is Kenny. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kenny. Let's go for Kenny over here. Kenny, here you go. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing and also for the gift. I really appreciate you for doing that. All right. Who do we have next, guys? Welcome to my live, guys. I see Abdul in the chat. How are you, Abdul? Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Laura. How are you, Laura? Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Avery. How are you, Avery? Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Laksh. Here you go, Laksh. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Wazim. Thank you so much, Wazim, for liking my live. The next subscriber that we have is Austin in the chat. Thank you, Austin, for subscribing and liking. Next subscriber, Lucy in the chat. Here you go, Lucy. Next subscriber, Leila in the chat. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Brain. How are you, Brain? Next subscriber that we have is Isaac. Here you go, Isaac. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Jamila. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking, Jamila. Next subscriber is Emma. How are you, Emma? Thank you. Next subscriber is Kyler. Thank you, Kyler, for liking my stream. Next subscriber in the chat is Marty. Thank you, Marty, for liking and subscribing. Next subscriber in the chat is Martina. All right. Hey, go, Martina. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Pablo. Here you go, Pablo. Next subscriber in the chat is Airman. All right, here you go, Airman. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Sarah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Zabir. Here you go, Zaber. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Mahoney. Thank you, Mahoney. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Teddy. Here you go, Teddy. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is, who is that? Reggie in the chat. Here you go. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Tristan. Here you go, Tristan. Have a nice day. Thank you for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Bean. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Carter. Thank you so much for liking, Carter. Next subscriber in the chat is I see Riley. Thank you so much for liking my stream. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Tyrese. How are you, Tyrese? Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Harper. Have a nice day, Harper. Next subscriber in the chat is Nicole. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Regina. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Serenade. How are you? Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Jessica. Have a nice day. Thank you for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Rossi. Thank you so much for liking, Rossi. Next subscriber is Tammy in the chat. Hey, have a nice day. Next subscriber is Serenity. How are you, Serenity? Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Isaac. Here you go, Isaac. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Lenny. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Next subscriber in the chat is Ayan. Thank you, Ayan. Next subscriber that we have in the chat is Leilani. How are you doing? Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Jacob. Here you go, Jacob. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Garrett. Here you go, Garrett. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is... Who is that? Thank you so much, Lenny. Next subscriber that we have, Iliad. Thank you so much for liking my stream, Iliad. Next subscriber in the chat is Nutella. Is that a name? All right, here you go. Thank you so much. Next subscriber in the chat is Maya. Here you go, Maya. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Maeve. Thank you so much for liking. All right, let's get to the next page, everybody. Thank you, Jerry, for this one. I will write Jerry on the next one too, guys. Thank you, Jerry. There you go for Jerry. I have to write the name like this. Jerry. Thank you so much. Just give me 1 second. Thank you, Jerry. All right, let's go, guys. Everybody, welcome in. All right, who do we have next, guys? I see is Milo in the chat. Thank you, Milo, for liking and subscribing. Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. Let's go for Julia in the chat. Just give me 1 second, Julia. Have a nice day. Julia. All right. Thank you so much. Shout out to Julia in the chat. I hope you like this one. I'm just going to decorate your name. Just give me 1 second. Thank you, Julia. Have a nice day. I hope you like this. All right, next subscriber in the chat is. Let's refresh the. Oh, God. All right. Just give me 1 second. Okay, next subscriber, guys, I see is Max in the chat. Thank you, Max, for liking and subscribing. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Kylan. Happy birthday, Kylan. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Jaya. Thank you so much for liking, Jaya. Have a nice day. Next subscriber in the chat is Bethany. Thank you for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Elia. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Preston. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Darcy. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Tommy. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Roland. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Francesco. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Ruth. Thank you so much for liking my stream. Next subscriber in the chat is Wyatt. Thank you, Wyatt. Next subscriber in the chat is Tyler. Thank you so much for liking my stream. Next subscriber in the chat is Monet. Thank you for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Alaya. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Luca. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Guru. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Adam. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Andrew. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Alyssa. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Enzo. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Charlotte. Thank you so much for liking. Next, Aaliyah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Morello. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Lucas. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber in the chat is Colquot. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Melissa. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Milana. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Rue. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Diva. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Vina. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Inez. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jazzy. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Aria. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Scarlett. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, AJ. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Shelby. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Vilo. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Frankly. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Maureen. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Dominic. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Emmy. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Bobby. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Isaac. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Arohi. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Max. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ria. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Farah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kendra. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Tom. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Emily. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Faisal. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jack. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Quinn. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ree. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jonas. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jennifer. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Leah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Faith. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Sam. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Benerel. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ava. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Lexi. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking. Next subscriber, Grace. Thank you so much for liking. Let's get to the next page. Thank you, Julia. I'm going to put your name on the next one too. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, you guys. Let me write Julia very quickly. Thank you, Julia. Just give me a minute, babe. Just give me a minute, Julia. I'm just gonna go with your name. Thank you. Just give me one more minute. Okay. All right, Julia. All right, next subscriber, Macho. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Oliver. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Nexus. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Richard. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Naomi. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kohan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Leila. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Florence. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Aisha. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Renan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jordan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jameson. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jordan. Jordan, your name is here. Next subscriber, Zayan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kino. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Layla. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Zaire. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Spencer. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Amar. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Cheyenne. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Chance. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Mike. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, London. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Luigi. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Elena. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Miami. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Aways. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jonas. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Wasco. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Aubrey. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Rio. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Eliana. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Fate. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Nihal. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Amar. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Isabella. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Fatima. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Paola. Is that Paola? Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Autumn. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Job. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Thaddeus. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Luna. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Adana. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Nicole. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Taylor. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Aubrey. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Nivaje. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Teresa. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Heidi. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Lucas. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Asad. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Hisham. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Briel. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ali. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Virad. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Airman. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Kaysen. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Regan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Snow. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Maddox. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Alina. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Joshua. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Harley. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Tyler. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Isabel. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Kelsey. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Zane. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Kana. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Aya. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Leo. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Chloe. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Adley. Thank you so much for liking. All right, let me change the page, guys. All right, next subscriber, Zoe. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kara. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Bojan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Naomi. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kristen. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Pape. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Vanessa. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Zane. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Derek. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Lucas. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Leon. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Matako. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jamian. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ruby. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Isla. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Breedon. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ruby. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Nabil. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Noah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Baznik. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Shamaika. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Nash. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kasha. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Aria. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Laura. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Florin. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kai. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Finn. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ade. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Miranda. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Ryan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Daisy. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Rahil. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jamie. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Mika. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Connor. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kaysen. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Elton. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Sowan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Mark. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Yara. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Fabian. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Marva. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Agata. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Lawans. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Rose. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Tavelin. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Carmelo. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you. Thank you so much for the gift. Good? Is that good or Jude? All right, let me write your name here. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you like this. Thank you so much. All right, next subscriber is Isla. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Noah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jessica. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Lesia. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Zach. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Hania. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Navas. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Braylon. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Jules. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Sarah. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kanaya. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Kassen. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Archie. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Will. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Nolan. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Jaden. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Bruno. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Willie. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Amelia. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Bobby. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber is Camila. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Ali. Thank you for liking. Next subscriber is Kate. Thank you for liking. Next subscriber, Coden. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Shakril. Thank you so much for liking. Next subscriber, Grayson. Thank you so much for liking. Guys, I will go on a break now, and I'll be back in half an hour. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye. Thank you.